the line, we will. You're recording it. Ah, hey, Wolfgang. Thanks. So, so this is quite good because we can then choose a mat cap. Mat caps are like it's got data recorded in it. So if you look at it, it's got like surface reflection, and Blender comes with a few different mat caps, and you can choose. And this is important for these biological colors because how it's been displayed. You can see this is like super glossy and it's a bit darker. And then, you know, we can select all types. I mean, this is a metallic one, which looks super cool, I think. We've got a few of our own, or you can make your own on the internet. There's videos on how to make these. You just take a sphere and you color it and you put lighting on it and you then take a render of it. It's quite easy to do. So I'll just take one of those so that we can work with it like this. Now I've said that this scan is like really dense. I'd probably think we need to decimate the scan, and by decimate, I mean we're going to reduce the model file. So I'm going to click on this once and just wait. So the first time, if it's very big, it takes a little bit of time. Okay, no, it wasn't too bad. So it's at 517,000 vertices. So a model, you know, between 200 and 300 verts is quite good. So I'm going to decimate it again. Now, when I say decimate, decimate is actually a modifier that we use in Blender. You can tap into these modifiers yourself if you want to, if you've got Blender knowledge. But all the buttons do what's the Blender, what we can do in it. So I've decimated 2 times, 171,000 verts. If I go tab edit mode, it looks a little bit less dense, and it's probably easier to work with the model. We haven't lost maybe on a microscopic level, perhaps we've lost a little bit of surface accuracy, but we're looking at like a pin of a needle, you know, it's like so small. Of course, if you decimate more, we're going to lose. This is helpful if you're working with a skull, a CT scan skull in Blender as well. All right, so this one we want to put into the middle of Blender, because if I go tilde key, tilde is that squiggly line just above the tab key. If we go tilde key, we get to see how we're going to position the model. So we want to see it in the front view. And these have numbers on them. So 7 is front. So you can go on your keyboard. 8 is top. 9 is back. So you can go on your keyboard, or you can use this widget up top here. So you can go X, or you can go Y, you know, so you can do this, or left click inside the widget and you can rotate. Now do yourself a favor, make sure you got a wheel mouse, because that wheel mouse can actually, we use that, we put our finger and we push down on the wheel, and that's so that we can pan across. So there's three ways of manipulating the environment. The one is scrolling with your mouse, that's zooming. With pushing the mouse wheel in and moving the mouse, we can rotate the model. And then finally pushing the mouse wheel in with clicking on the shift key on the keyboard, shift, and mouse wheel down, we get to be able to pan across. So those 3 are important to know. And it can get confusing sometimes because we need to work with a few things at the same time. We need to change the scene and extrude something, for example. So now it's important to have the model in the Blender facing us correctly. At the moment, it's slanting to the one side. And if we're putting this in a study model base, for example, it's going to not be correct. It's, you know, the model will be off center. So this is why we're placing things in the center of Blender. Now, how do we do this? We go into our model, our menu, and here it says aligning to center. So we're going to go Control left click to close all the other menus. So everything folds together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to name these models. So the script is looking for certain names. So we've called that target, the one, and opposing the other one. Now, some people have asked, why don't you call it up and lower? And that's simple because we may be working with something like an ear or, something else. We've had people using it for other things. So anyway, so this is our target model, the top, and then the other one is opposing. If you've only got an upper or you only got a lower, you can still align it to the center, but you don't have an opposing. So you'll just call it target. That's all you have to do. And we don't click the link and flip if you've only got one model because there's nothing to link. So you'd just be placing a few points on there. So when we do that, we can see there's a naming box here and it says opposing. It says that on the scan and on the left-hand side as well. So when we've got that, we're going to link and flip it, which means we get to see it from the other side, and then we can put a few points on there. So I'm going to go Shift right click. So when I do that, it puts on a little, looks like a life-saving ring, red and white like that, or a dart, or like a, if you look through if you're a sharpshooter or something, that's your little, starting point, so, or ending point. Sorry, Wolfgang?
Your target.
Your target. Okay, so I'm going to click P on the keyboard, which puts up a point. Now, usually it's in red, okay? The reason why it's not in red is because we are in vertex select mode. When you go up top on the right-hand side, I was talking about matte caps. You can see this is on vertex. So in order to see biological colors, you have to make sure that it says vertex colors. Normally in Blender, we work with textures, and some of my codes will actually go into texture code. So if all of a sudden the biological color disappears, just know that we may have, for some reason, gone into the texture mode. So if I go texture, it's white and that little point is red, okay? So on vertex with PLY, it takes the biological colors and our point is not red. So we need 4 points. So we've got one and we're going to then put a few more there. So how do we do that? We can go Shift right click to put another one and use this one. Some keyboards don't have the points, the P on the keyboard. So here, then you'll just go 4 points and you click there. So another one gets put down at the cursor. The other way of doing it is get to know your shortcuts in Blender. So the shortcuts is quite intuitive. Shift D, for example, is duplicate. So Shift D. That's what we want to do. So I'm going to click Shift D and I'm going to move my mouse and I'm just going to left click another one. So Shift D and put another one. So the reason why I'm doing this is I'm looking at is it a trap, Wolfgang? A
trapezoid.
Trapezoid shape, yes. So why we want that is because it calculates, it actually draws in the background without us knowing. It'll make an object like this, and then it'll calculate the middle of that object, and it'll plonk it face down or face up on the center of the floor of Blender. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to take a model and almost like put it on your desktop table. Okay, so that's what we want to do. So I'm going to click on a line. So it flips it, and it is, so it's more or less aligned. Yep, so it's sort of the blue line is the center of Blender. So the midline is not exactly right, but it's good enough to make a model in the model designer. So if you're using the articulator, for example, we would then fine tune it and bring it exactly where we want it to be. But for this, it's all good. I'm happy with that. Okay. So if there's any questions related to this, one more thing is sometimes for some reason it takes the shortest path, and then you'll find that unfortunately when you click on a line, it's upside down, or it may be a little bit to the facing the other way. So just click on these. It'll rotate it by 90 degrees every time you click. So here, the y-axis, here you can see the y is the green, is facing us. So I'm going to click on the y-axis once and twice. So these axes run through Blender. You can clearly see the green one and the red one, and there's one missing, and that's the z-axis, which is blue. Now, in order for us to see the z-axis, we're going to go up top on the right-hand side, and then this widget over there, we're going to just click on here, the Z. So we can hide and unhide these axes. We can control these axes if we want to, okay? So the next thing we need to know is that when we click on an object, there is a point of origin. Now, this is important because this is how you rotate an object. At the moment, you see there's like an orange dot in the center. And this orange dot is exactly in the center of Blender, which is the way we want it, okay? So when you're importing an object or whatever, that point of origin may not be in the center. And this is why we're using this aligning here so that we can get it to the center. Okay, so I'll just show you what it would look like if the point of origin was somewhere else. So I'm going to shift right click my cursor. So put my cursor over here. Then I'm going to right click and I'm going to change my origin, set origin to 3D cursor. Okay, so you can see now it is set there. And if I rotate it, it rotates along the origin. Okay. So I don't want the origin to be there. And this is why we're using this aligning thing, okay, as well. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'll just have a sip of water. And Wolfgang, have you got anything that comes to mind?
No, I'm just watching the chats window. So if you guys want to, post your questions, feel free to do that. Now, Michael, can you just show the different windows in Blender? So the outliner window is a very important window that we work with, and the object management.
Indeed, so. So I'm going to take my mouse, move it up until there's a little cross that appears. Left mouse button down and just move your mouse. So we're opening up this window. Now this is very helpful because in Blender we get to see, we can make as many windows as we want to. And if we're using the wax up or crown and bridge work and we want to work and see everything simultaneously, this is exactly what we can do. So we can open up these windows and we can, while we're working, we're doing a wax up, for example, we can see this side and that side. This is really cool in Blender. Now these windows, we can choose what we want to see. I often use the text editor, so just to do coding and so on. So let's close a window first. So take your mouse, move it down until a cross appears in the corner, and then drag it. So left mouse button down, and then move your mouse 45 degrees. There's an arrow that appears, and then you let your left-hand finger off, and then that closes the window. So, okay, up here on the right top, we can get to select what we want to see. So as I said to you before, this text editor, we've got a whole different variety. We've got dope sheets and we've got timeline editors. Timeline we use with the articulator a lot, but we position it on the lower bar. The outliner is important. The properties is very important. This is where all of the modifiers take place. The outliner is something that you all have to get to know and inside out how it works. Now, this is a hierarchy structure of all of your objects in your whatever you've got in Blender appears here. And at the moment, we've got a few things. So we've got a few models here, and you may think, why do we have a few models if we actually only have 2 scans? Yeah? And this is quite easy because when the scan has been done, it's got a few different little objects here. And this has been separated while we were doing the alignment. So it explodes all the little pieces. And the other day I had a scan from one of, I think it was a 3-shape scan or something. And it had like 50 objects in one scan. And I thought, wow, what is going on here? So I don't know why that is. It obviously captures little islands here and there, and then when we separate them, it actually it explodes all these islands and little objects. So this is something important that we need to know about these things as well. So to get rid of the stuff that we don't want, like this is an object, this is an island and another island, I'm going to left click on the one, shift left click. Now shift left click is add to the collection, and that's a common Windows thing that we use in Windows as well. Shift left click, okay, we add to the selection. So then I'm going to go Control I. Control I on the keyboard is the inverse, okay, and then I'm going to then X and delete, so that deletes everything else. Okay. So these shortcut keys, and Wolfgang, you're recording this, so we can keep this on our YouTube channel if you want to refer back to that.
Yeah.
All right, so I select the top, then it gets highlighted. I select the bottom, it gets highlighted, and vice versa. I can select there or I can select there. Note that this is in a folder. The default folder is called collection. That's what we call them in Blender. So they're not layers. In the olden Blender, it was called layers. So this is called collections. Now, what we want to do is if we want to make a new collection, simply then click on select your object and M for move on your keyboard, and then it'll prompt you to move it into a new collection. So I'm going to put plus new collection and I'll call it lower, okay? And then okay. So this is placed it in a new folder, and we've got different folders here. So we can move them, we can drag them from one folder to the other. So we can do all of this in this outliner window.
Michael, can you
You'll
show how you
notice,
can also copy and paste there? And also you could make your collection within that in the outliner window.
yeah, so you can go copy and paste, and you've got new collection as well. Okay. So we've got little eyes here, and these eyes are to hide things. Now the keyboard shortcut is H. So if I click H, I can hide, and Alt H, I can unhide. Now, to take it one step further, we've got little filters here, and by default, I should actually have this always on, because I always use this one, and I always use this one. Looks like a little bit of a TV screen. Now, this one here enables the selection or disables the selection. So if I do this, then I cannot click on my upper model. Okay, I cannot select it. So in some of the scripting, you may see that, I can't select something. And that's just to safeguard the user from doing the wrong thing. But then you should know that you go in the outliner window, uncheck this, and then you can select it. The other one is like a little bit of a screen here. So this is different from the hide one. It hides it as well. But the benefit of this is that it's a more permanent hidden one. So if I go Alt H on the keyboard, it doesn't come back, okay? So if your model disappears somewhere and you can't find it, that's because of this one here, okay? Now, object management is really important. Sometimes like in the crown bridge work, or if you're doing a stackable, you may have 120 or 150 objects on the scene, and this can get very confusing. So the way we manage our objects is through these collections, or we name them. So I'm going to double click up top here and call it upper, so we can get to change the names. Or we can use colors. Now, colors is also important. Like in mathematics, when we do geometry, we often use colors so that it makes it easier and simpler to understand. All right, I think this sort of covers the outliner window, and we're going to get to doing cleaning up this very messy scan. So if I have a look at the scan, it's got a hole in here. It's got these these overlap. You know, there's like a cavity in there. I don't know if that cavity, maybe the person needs a filling. I doubt it. It's an incorrect diagnostic treatment plan. Oh, patient, you need a filling there.
Yeah.
You go in the mouth and there's no cavity. So, you know, these scans are sometimes not 100% perfect. And when sometimes in the sulcus area, you'll see like little blisters, and that's from trapped saliva or something. You can also have that as well. All right, so how do we go about this? Now, the first thing I want to do is I'll hide the lower so we can have a look. So we've got a few holes, we need to fill those, and we need to obviously cut this arch properly. So I think we're going to start with, maybe we'll fill these holes first. So I'm going to have a look and see where this hole filler of ours is. And that's in this menu here, okay? So here it says fill holes. So I'll select it and I'll click fill holes. Okay, and you can see how it's actually filled my holes up, which is super cool. But the mesh structure, if you look at the mesh structure, it's a very easy filling. So it's just like, you know, so we can sculpt over that, but for this video, I'm just going to leave it the way it is, just keep it simple. Then what we're going to do is we're going to trim this arch. We're going to arch cut it. So I'm going to go shift right click to place a cursor. I'm going to go to the arch cut, and that places a line up there. And notice again, it's not blue because we are in vertex select mode, okay? So, and then I'm going to click E to extrude and left click. And we're going to do this all the way around this entire scan, okay? Excellent. So, yeah. So when the surfaces are flat, we can extrude longer distances. If they're not flat, we will not extrude long distance. And when we have irregular surfaces like here, we will make more vertices. So I can see these vertices in transparent mode. You can see them there. Or if I zoom out a bit, I don't know why Blender has changed it. In the earlier versions, we could see the vertices clearly. I don't know. Maybe they'll change it back in the other versions. Okay, so I'm going to E left click. If you're new to Blender, you will have to now navigate the scene. So I'm going to put my mouse finger on the mouse wheel and then rotate, shift finger on the mouse wheel, pan. And then I'm going to go E, left click, E. E means extrude. So I'm used to using that. If you're not used to using that, click on the extrude sign here, and then simply left click like this, okay? But note that when you're doing it like that and you want to edit it, you have to click on edit because otherwise the extrude function is still on, okay? And then when you get to the end, click on fuse. So here we've gone a little bit, we've cut into it. So I'm going to take this and use a G key just to, we don't want to do this, okay? We don't want to do that because this picture little like a ribbon or something going on the top of the scan, on the bottom of the scan, and it's like come extruding 0.1 or 0.2 millimeters outwards and inside the scan, and it's got to cut the scan. Okay, so we're actually making a cutting tool. Okay, so we're going to click on trim next, trim, and then that separates the upper and the lower. Sorry, the where we've cut, and you can clearly see it's all been separated across like that. Okay, we are in edit mode at the moment. I'm going to select something on the top of the scan, just say like this, left click of the mesh that I want to keep, and then I'm going to click on clean. Okay, clean, and that'll get rid. Oh, where's my thing gone? And that'll then get rid of my everything else. Sorry, the bottom of it. Okay, so it's gotten rid of the bottom. So you may ask, why do we have that? Is because you can select both and keep both, and that's in later procedures. Okay. All right, so from here, we can then make our model. So we're going to go to the model bases, and we're going to click on upper base. Okay, so make sure you don't click lower base because it'll extrude in the wrong direction. It'll extrude downwards, and we want it to extrude upwards. And this is exactly what we've done here. Okay, Alt-H to unhide, H to hide this one. Now this is a bit tricky, okay? We've got these silly little things going on here. And now we need to see what are we going to do, okay? Even if I scan in, it's as small as this thing here, okay? So we've got 1, 2, 3 connectors on this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into fast edit mode. So it says fast edit, make sure it's selected, it needs to be outlined. And I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to go fast edit. And then I'm going to use the C key and I'll take this and I'll just simply, C key means circle select. I'm going to select a few like this, okay, like that. And what I ultimately want to do is I want to delete them. So X, delete vertices or faces. Just click on faces. And that's taken this away. Then I'm going to click on my scan, anywhere on my scan, and I'm going to click on clean. So what that does, it selects what I want to keep, and then the coding will select the inverse and delete the inverse. So click on clean, and that's disappeared, okay? But we are left with 3 little holes there, okay? So that's okay. We already know how to fill these holes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on fill holes. So here, Wolfgang, I always lose this one, okay?
It's the
So make
biggest
sure it's
one on the
selected.
menu.
Yeah.
It's like it's right in front of you, Michael.
Yeah. So if the hole is too big, it won't fill. I think I've selected to like 400 vertices. So if the hole is too big, like the actual scan as a whole, okay. So it's set on a certain criteria. If you want to fill bigger holes in Blender, you can go into edit mode and you can go to here. It says mesh, clean up, fill holes, and then up bottom there, you can select how many sides you want to select so that you can fill bigger holes. So it's just some additional information. Now we need to obviously arch cut this tool as well. And you can see it's really messy here. I mean, we should actually fix this up, because if you would print something like that, you'd actually need supports to be able to print this. Am I correct, Wolfgang, in saying that?
Yeah, it's downwards facing, so you'd have to support it.
So let's get rid of this mess. I'm going to go onto sculpt, okay, and then it goes into texture mode, okay. So like I said to you before, it's I think that's default, Wolfgang. I don't know. I had this question the other day, whether they can sculpt in the actual mode of.
Vertex mode.
We are in vertex mode. So that means that sculpting automatically selects it turns white. It turns white, I think.
Yeah, is there
I
something you
think
can change in the code to keep it sculpting in color?
no, because we are already in vertex mode. So
Okay.
I think this is just part and parcel of how Blender is. I don't know. It probably is like that. Doesn't matter. When we go out of sculpting mode, the color will come back. So don't worry about that. It's not a major actually. So here what I'm doing is I'm just going to smooth it. So in the sculpting, there's like a little dropper. Now this dropper is really amazing because it will select, it'll give us the opportunity to select a mesh density which is other than the one that is currently being used. So I've selected the mesh density of over here where the gingival crevices are because it's, yeah, okay. Now we are in the other mode, Wolfgang. Look, I'm able to sculpt like this.
Oh, that's
This has
so
got to
cool.
do with my coding then.
I mean,
Maybe I've got it set to texture mode. I'm not sure. I'll have to check into that.
yeah, because it would be nice if it retains the actual the color.
Color. So yeah, later on this morning I'll have a quick look into it and see whether we can change it. So I'm a bit surprised that I am able to look. I am able to sculpt, which is super cool. Anyway, I'm excited, so which is good. Okay, so we filled that hole, and this hole has also automatically filled, which is really cool. Get out of the exit, and we need to arch cut this. Okay, so shift right click to place the cursor, and go to the blue one here. Okay, and we're going to extrude this quickly. Okay, perfect. So this is a bit of a problem over here. I'm going to use G key to grab and extrude. Now, when we're extruding these things, also always be aware that we want to make our cut so that if I draw a line here, okay, so this has to extrude like this, okay, all the way like this. So I don't want you guys to put your cut like this, okay, your arch cut like that, because this is going to be a problem here, because as it extrudes down and across, I need my pencil here. So as it extrudes down like this, that's going to happen, and this is no good, okay, because we're going to have vertices, the inside vertices on the outside, and anything that overlaps is no good. And the same thing when we extrude this is why we're doing arch cutting, because if we have stuff like this going on and it extrudes, I mean, this is, the border does get smoothed out. So I'm just explaining that this will be extruded that way, and this is just no good. So we're trying to avoid undercut areas at all time. Just to keep our meshes nice and simple and easy to use, okay? Let's just change that back like that, like this, okay? So again, note that if we're placing a lot of vertices, that we want to be, so if we're going through a lot of hills and valleys, we need to then make sure that we're placing more vertices down. Okay, it's very important, okay? Otherwise, it may not cut. Like here, we can go long stretches, no problem at all. You know, the flatter it is, the more. And if ever you've got a model where it's not flat, sculpt it first, smooth it down first before you're putting the arch cut down. You see, so here, all the way across. So what I'm doing is I'm going to shift left click. So this one is selected. Shift left click to select that one and F to fuse. Okay. So that's important to know how to do that as
Or you
well.
can use a fuse button as well.
Only if you've started, yeah, with
Yeah.
this menu.
Mm.
So let's trim this. I'm going to select a vert that I want to keep and click on clean. So let's cut it beautifully, and we're going to make a lower base. So if you wanted to make a lower base with a border going around that, let's do that. So Control Z, we'll go back, Control Z. So don't use the escape key to go back because it's not going to work, okay? Control Z, and that's a common Windows key as well. To go back is always Control Z. So what we'll do is we'll make a border with a border. This takes a little bit longer to calculate, so because what it does, it makes a complete model first, and then it takes it one step back. So, okay, here we go. We've got a border, and surprising it's turned out white, whereas the other one's got, it's probably because of biological colors. It has simply extruded, but here we've made new faces. So this is really cool. It extrudes out by about 1 millimeter. You can see how clean our meshes are in the B4D model design. It's always nice and clean. If you feel that this base is too big or too small, click on this button here and that'll shift it downwards or upwards. If you wanted to go into edit mode, click on scale, and then it selects it automatically, and you can just pull on this line. You can scale it, so you can do whatever you want with this, okay? Perfect. So if there's any questions about that, happy to answer. Nothing? So let us hollow this. Let us hollow this. So we've got a few hollowing tools. I'm going to click on hollow. So when that comes up, it puts on like a tool thing. Don't be alarmed. This is part of the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a filler. So let's take a different filler. Usually we use a honey vented. Let's engage in the gyroid for today and see what happens. So that takes a little bit longer because it's quite a big object that's being filled inside. It's got lots of vertices, but I think it's super cool. So we'll just wait. So if you're using Blender 2.92 or 2.93 and you've downloaded the wrong Blender version, you will get stuck at this point because the Boolean tool is not going to work, okay? And we've had a lot of people, oh, this doesn't work. And that's simply because they don't read the instructions, or it's all over our website, 2.83 LTS, until we change, and which we're going to do within this next month or so. So here we've got this. I'm going to we can move this tool upwards. So this is a cutting tool, okay? So we're cutting this object and we're moving it upwards. And then after that, I'm going to click on apply. So this is a gyroid. So it's a mathematical gyroid. It's quite amazing because it's a single surface. It's single surface everywhere. So if I use Alt B, for example, and I want to have a look at a cross section of that, we can see how this is structured. And it's actually a single surface wherever you look. So it's all the way around, inside out. Absolutely fantastic, I think.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
beautiful print as well, Michael. I've printed many of these. It's just amazing, and also
Yeah, it's amazing.
it's a very strong structure.
Not only that, it's you know, with the suction cup effect, you've got, you know, it can pull out the liquid from every single cavity, which
Mm.
is I think it's absolutely beautiful.
I think
Okay.
ideally you'd pierce through the wall of it still, you know, just make a little hole in there.
I think so. And I think, Wolf, this is probably a superior structure on the inside, I think.
Mm.
I have toned it down a bit. The faces are not as dense as what they used to be, and that's just because it took a little bit too long. But the length didn't take too long in doing this, I think.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. So I'm going to hide this, and we're going to have a look at the cutting tools. But I want to save this file because it looks so super cool today. I'm in a weird habit where when I save files, I just type anything on the keyboard, just like plump, 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 plump. And I've got thousands of files that look like that. There's
They,
no meaning to it. What, Wolf?
well, you can
Eh?
find them just by going file and new or open, and there it is, you know. But if it gets out, if it gets lost out of that little window, you'd have a hard time finding it, won't you?
Yeah, absolutely. But I only put a word if I actually really do need this file, you know,
So you're a
later
bit of
on.
a hoarder.
Yeah. In the model designer, we've got in the menus, we've got save buttons. So it's in the Crown and Bridgework module, because every step that we do, we may want to save each step. So I've got save, save, save. And I think that's really cool, because then at least, you know, a user doesn't forget. Although Blender has an auto save function. So as we're working, we'll go file, and we can go recover, auto save, and if it crashes Blender or whatever, it saves. So as we've been working here, it saved like 30 minutes, and then every few minutes it'll save my file as I'm working. So if ever you shut it down or it crashes or something, go recover, auto save, and list by the date. Chances is that you've got a previous version there that's been auto saved. So just something to remember. Okay. So these cutting tools, shift right click to place the cursor, and we're going to look at the cutting tools. And here, for example, I can use a vertex cutting tool. So it'll place, sorry, I've got to select it first. Make sure it's selected first. Vertex cutting tool, use a G key. And in this little vertex, I can extrude it. So let's make a funky looking shape like that. And we're going to click on slice. And that makes a like a slice. And I can set the thickness of the slice. At the moment, it's 0.1. Now we're using this in the crown and bridgework module so that we can make dies. And Wolfgan's worked very hard on his die split cast die thing. We can actually put the dies in. I think it's way superior than making dies inside of a model, I think. So well done, Wolf.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're still working on it, but it's absolutely incredible, incredible. So okay, with that, I'm going to accept that, and that will then split my model up. So I've got part A and part B. Okay, I think super cool. We've got other cutting tools. So these are live cutting tools. So if I click on lasso, for example, lasso, and I then lasso out a section, and so this is actually in transparent, but because we're working in vertex select mode, you don't see it in transparent. So in texture mode, you can see it's been transparent. So let's cut out another section, and we will then, you can also make slice, which will actually then make a border around it. So we end up with, you know, exactly like we did earlier there. So we're going to keep inside or keep outside. Let's keep the outside, and that will then chop it down. So these are tools, if you look at it from the side, okay? These are tools, and we can move these cutting tools if we want to. So these are fully dynamic, the cutting tools, okay? And then of course we will then accept it. And that takes a bit of time to calculate, especially the lasso cutting tool, because there's so many vertices there. Okay, let's go back into vertex mode. Okay, so I'll just grab the file again. Open recent, my gibberish file. And we're going to just go to the articulator. So Ivan's put in a lot of effort into the articulator. So here, articulation. And I'm going to bring in a verti. He's called it verti articulators. And that will place the structure up on the top and the bottom. Super cool. And now we can select these and we can print it. So if we do that, left click, shift left click, and shift left click, and then file, export, STL file. Make sure that you click the selection only button. It's very, very important. Otherwise, it's going to take everything out of Blender and export it, and we don't want that. So just click on that. So yeah. So if I hide this, if I hide all of this and import what I've just exported, here, my little funny file here. This is a file we take to our printer, and then we can print this file like this. Okay. Super cool. Okay, so now that we've got this, you may see that your base doesn't fit. Well, we're lucky in this one. Okay, it fits perfectly. But maybe you want to put your jaw, your lower jaw, into a protrusive position for like a knife splint or something. I don't know. So let's do that. So on the left-hand side, we've got this widget here, which we can then move. So just say you've used the articulator or you've scanned the patient into a phonetic occlusion or something. I don't know. But you want to keep it open like this. And actually, let's put this like this. And you'll see that this model extrudes beyond this verti articulator. These are made up of separate little objects. Each one of these is like a separate object. Now, obviously we want to keep them together, otherwise they won't print. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the lower part, shift right click to select my lower arm, and I'm going to hook it. So hook base to hinge, okay? So what that does, this is just, I think this is incredible, because now what we're doing, we've got this arm here, which is like chewing gum. I mean, we can, it's like super cool. We can put it wherever we want to put it. It's really fantastic, because now we can change the angle of where the base is. We can place it nicely. I'm going to hook the top, hook it, and then we can do the same. Now these articulators, we have a lot of different designs and different hinge types and whatever, and they snap together just one onto the other. So when they're printed, so this is quite a
can you put a
fantastic
vertical
concept.
stop to that, Michael?
Yeah, so just say you want a vertical stop in the front. So we're going to click on this pin thing, which brings in.
Actually, you
now
could
this
have
is
it in the
again.
back as well, in the palatal area, can't you?
Yeah, you can put it anywhere you want. So, let's look at it from the top top view or the bottom from the top view like that. In transparent mode, it's actually better to work with this because we get to see the bar. So I can rotate it and then I can actually see where the bar is so that we can place this correctly like this, okay? And then, of course, we can then scale this S scale, but on the Z, scale Z, or we can move it. Don't separate this, because if you separate this by mistake, how are you going to get this back exactly, okay? So when you're working, just always make sure you've got both selected. Although we can rotate, if we want to, we can rotate. I can take this one, rotate on the Z axis, so RZ. We can rotate this one, RZ, okay? We can scale it, so take both of these, S, X, X is the red. We can scale this. So, you know, in Blender, Blender is a design software, so the faster we learn how to design with it, the more we can do. And this is why Wolfgang and I are here. We're here to help you learn how not only to use our modules, but how to design in Blender. So if you've got questions, please feel free to ask. Now, we haven't made a die in this, but what we're going to do is, I think we're going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Do we have time or we're finished?
I think
okay?
we're up. Time's up, Michael.
Yeah.
I have
So
a
I
feeling
think
you can talk all day.
No, I'm actually tired now. But I think this was a super cool session and quite happy about it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Excellent.
Okay.